Every week we do a Q&A with interesting and accomplished members of the adaptive community to find how they persevered, how they innovated, how they built communities, and how they found solutions. Welcome to the Nametags Chat Podcast. Welcome to the Nametags Chat Podcast. I am with Alexa Halko, who is an amazing athlete. I met her first back when she was 16. Actually, I guess we didn't meet. I feel like I met you. I saw you from a distance. I talked about you. What was it? 2 silvers and a bronze in Rio?
Yep.
Which was just announcing yourself to the world at 16 years old. 3-time world champion. Or three world championships, 7 medals, 6. Am I getting this right? 3 world championships. You should know this too, right? But 7 medals, right? So 7 medals. But yes, I mentioned gold, which is really ultimately, unfortunately, been the elusive part of your pursuit. But hopefully something that can be changed in Tokyo.
Yeah, that's definitely the goal. Always.
Welcome, Alexa. Thank you for joining us. Is that the goal? I mean, so you went to Rio. You were this kid, but you were really, I mean, in some ways you were fully grown as well. I mean, it seems like you haven't really grown much since you were 16. So you didn't look like a kid necessarily.
Yeah.
But you were a kid, and you've gone to the University of Illinois since, which is really, if you're going to continue to get fast, that's the place to continue to get fast. How have things gone since Rio?
I think it definitely has been a roller coaster. Yeah, so I was a junior when I went to Rio, a junior in high school, and my goal was always to go to University of Illinois. Even before I made my first Paralympic team when I was 14, that was always the goal. I was like, okay, I'm gonna get to Rio, and I'm gonna try to go to the University of Illinois for college and to keep training. And so when I did make it on the team, when I did get to this school, it was like just really eye-opening to be around so many older, experienced athletes, and just like kind of having them rub off on me, because I have known many of the wheelchair athletes for a while, but I haven't been able to train with them consistently like I do here. So it's really nice to have that. And so I think the biggest factor in like my progress from Rio was being here and being able to train as a group, because that group is really important, I feel like.
Well, it's the best group. And I mean, certainly you said that Tatiana McFadden was one of your heroes.
Yeah.
And now you get to share a track with her every day, twice a day, sometimes. But you also, like when you first started, so you started as a little kid, right? In Oklahoma, like 7 years old.
Yeah.
And then when you were in Virginia, you had a coach, but you had a coach who hadn't coached any wheelchair athletes.
Yeah. So he was an elite able-bodied coach. And so we kind of just went from there, using his experience as an elite coach, and kind of just like showing him the side of wheelchair racing, which I think ultimately helped me during that period of time when I was kind of training on my own. Just having that kind of elite mentality, even though I had no idea what I was doing, in all honesty. Like, yeah, I was pushing in my chair, like I was trying to go as fast as I could, but not having a lot of wheelchair athletes in my area, I was kind of just going along, doing whatever I could.
Right. You didn't have any reference point, right? You couldn't look and say, oh, well, this person's going faster than me. I need to do this differently. I need to do that differently. And
Yeah.
and certainly you were fit. And what, I mean, it's you went to Rio at 16. but you went to world champs in London
Yeah.
at 15, right? So
Well, that was Doha.
oh, it was
London
Doha, right? Yep,
17. Yeah.
right. Yeah, but anyway, at 15, you were at the World Championships, and you were winning medals at 15. So this is, you said you were a junior in high school in Rio. You were a
Yeah.
sophomore in high school when you went to your first World Championships and were first part of the team. How has coming and being part of, you said that these athletes are rubbing off on you,
Yeah.
which is really a lot of what you hope for, right? To be on the track and to be able to figure out how you might be able to add some of what they do well to what you do well.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like a lot of our athletes are distance runners
Mhm.
and or distance people, and I have never been into distance. I'm a sprinter all the way. And when I got to Illinois, coach was like, you're going to have to do a marathon because all Illinois racers have to do marathon when they get there. And I've just been pushing it off. I'm like, no, I'm a sprinter. Like, I'm just going to sprint. And I've gotten it pretty good so far. I haven't been forced to do a marathon yet. We'll see what happens next year. Still one more year,
Adam
but,
might be watching this, you know.
I know. He's like, okay, check, gotta do it. But yeah, so there's a lot of distance runners, but just their experience going to all these different races. Like, yeah, I've been doing this for a little bit, but they've been doing it for a lot longer. And so, yeah, I mean, it definitely helps knowing their experience. And I don't know a lot of like chair maintenance stuff. I I'm not good at like the technical stuff, but as a wheelchair racer, you have to know some of that stuff, especially when you're like on the track or on the road and something happens. Like, you got to know that stuff. And so just being with a lot of people who are aware of what to do in those situations, it's nice to just know that.
It's interesting that you say that you won't do a marathon or that you're putting it off as much as you can, because it seems like you have the kind of mentality that would lend itself to a marathon. Just watching you push, it looks like you get into a good solid rhythm and you maintain a consistent pace.
Do you mean endurance wise?
Endurance wise, yes.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like, I feel like I go in, like, I hit a different mode in the 800 specifically, because I can't do that in the 100. But like, I just hit a switch in my brain for the 800, and then I go into the like longer, more powerful stroke, I think, and that's what you see after the start. But yeah, I don't know if I could ever do that for 26 miles. It would have to be some craziness.
Okay, but but it is interesting because it looks like that's part of your greatest strength, is being able to maintain a consistent pace. And really, just in watching some of your races, some of the challenges, it looks like from the outside, are are getting off the start, accelerating up to speed, and then
Yeah.
also changing gears when you're at speed, right? Which is, Hannah Cockcroft is the dominant person in your class, the T34 class, which we'll have to get you to describe what your class is in a little bit. But watching what she does well is she accelerates so well off the start,
Yeah.
and she accelerates well from a rolling. She has a rolling acceleration that's pretty good as well. And what have you done at U of I? Because I mean, looking at Tatiana saying that she is one of your heroes, that's also stuff that Tatiana does really well. That crazy hand speed at the start where she just puts meters in between herself and the rest of the pack.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I mean, definitely the past like being at Illinois, I've done a lot more starts practices, technique training, just really zoning in on the mechanics of pushing, basically, which normally I wouldn't think about. And also, I changed gloves when I moved to Illinois, like most wheelchair racers do when they get to Illinois, just because there is a 3D printer, so they make all their gloves.
So you're gonna
And
have to describe a little bit more of that, going from the soft gloves to the hard plastic gloves.
yeah, well, yeah, because I had the harness soft gloves for like since that whole time I was racing. So I was really like kind of nervous about changing gloves. Um, but once I started and realized that everyone else was training with hard gloves, I was like, okay, let's figure this out. I can do this. I'm not one to good with change, but I was like, I mean, I see all my other athletes or my other teammates figuring it out. So, I mean, why not? Let's do it. And so I just started out with the hard gloves, and I kind of just have been going from there. It's definitely, there's less give. So that's what makes it much better, I feel like, especially for starts. Because instead of like the soft gloves, there's more like, I don't know, like it's a cushion. Whereas like the hard gloves is just like off the hand rim you go. Like it's not like,
There's no real give on it. Yeah.
yeah,
So it's just, you have greater purchase on
yeah,
your push ring. So is that helping your starts with the hard gloves?
yeah, no, for sure. Because it's like you don't have like a slower reaction time, I feel like, from the gloves. Like you're just going off from that surface and just, yeah.
But
So it's been nice with the hard gloves. I haven't changed to groove, like the groove. I just have flat, and that's worked for me. Once again, I say I'm not good with change, so I kind of just keep whatever I go. I just try to figure it out from there. But the flat ones have been working for me. So yeah.
But that's fairly recent though, right? Because as recently as 2019 at the World Championships, it looked like you were still racing with harness gloves.
Oh, well, maybe. I mean, I can't remember when I changed now that you say that. Because I probably just, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, wait, I think I might have had harness gloves in Doha. So
In
maybe.
Doha, but it looked like in Dubai that they had harness gloves too. So maybe,
I,
I don't know. We'll have to look at it. But it
yeah,
looked like you
yeah.
were still in 29, because I was trying to figure out the progression, because it looked like I did see you at trials
Yeah,
with the hard gloves, with and what they are is they're a form fitted glove and they don't break down, right? Because
yeah,
the harness gloves, it's almost like you have to break them in. And then once you break them in and you sort of develop that nice groove and get things all set, then they're on their way to falling apart, kind of, not necessarily falling apart, but getting to the point where then you're going to break through the rubber, and then you have to get new stuff and get new gloves and break them in again. And so the hard gloves are really maintaining that sense of consistency. Now,
yeah.
watching some of your races, because in Tokyo you're going to race in two crazy different races: the 100 meters, which is start and you're not going to be able to get up to full speed in the
Yeah.
100 meters, and then the 800 meters, which you say you're a sprinter. The 800 meters is
A
what
long
I
sprint.
like to think of as a strategic, painful sprint, a really long, painful sprint. So, how are you approaching these two events, and what are you thinking? What are you thinking your expectations are?
Um, well, I mean, honestly, when I'm thinking about big competitions, just trying to go out there and make my mark, especially in the 800. because there is a lot of strategy. When I'm at a big competition, like I don't really think about it for competitions in the US, just because I don't have the amount of competitors that I do for bigger competitions.
You're just
But
time trialing like you did at the trials. You were just in a time trial. You went as fast as you could off the front
yeah,
and just kept
yeah.
going.
But like in the bigger competitions, I have to actually think like, oh, I'm gonna have to draft, I'm gonna have to move, I'm gonna have to get in, try to get in the inside lane and try to, keep up with Hannah, and not get boxed in by anybody else. That's a main one, because you never know who's the second one, you just gotta stay behind,
Well,
try
that
not to
has
get
happened.
boxed in and
Right.
be able to go out. It's just, yeah.
Well, because that was, so what was that? That was that in which one was that? In 17? Is that
In
when
London.
in London? Yeah. So that was in London where then, you were you were where were you? Third in line, I guess. You just, because this is one of the challenges for you, right? Is the idea of you haven't started as quickly. So
Yeah.
then you're kind of catching up, and you have Hannah who's been the dominant person. You're racing against two Brits oftentimes. And Hannah, when I talked to her, said that she definitely does not employ any team tactics. And I would be interested to hear if you agree with that. But Carrie was in front, right? And she sort of pulled off and then pulled in behind Hannah,
Yeah.
and Hannah took off. And then you're sitting there going, oh great, now I've got to go try to close this gap off of Hannah, who accelerates that much more quickly than you do.
Yeah.
So these are the kind of tactics that you're looking at, like how to bridge the gap at the start and be able to get in without having to do 300 meters on your own, just
Yeah.
get in for a moment.
Yeah, no, for sure. And like the thing is, like, it's hard to gauge when your competitors are going to go like turn on the switch and when they're not. So usually there's like, for the 800, usually the last like 300 meters or 200 meters, you're going full out. Like no matter what you were doing beforehand, you're going full out on that last 200 or maybe 300, depending on your competitors. And I feel like for all the 800s I've done with Hannah and Kari, it's definitely different for everyone. And I think that's also like one of the, I mean, it's kind of fun to me, but it's super stressful because I'm like, I never know what's gonna happen, but you just got to go with it, because I mean, at the end of the day, it's the race, and you want to get you want to place. Well, I want to place. So
Do you feel like you're the one on the outside looking in? They are teammates, even though Hannah said that she doesn't have any teamwork. But do you feel like you're on the outside looking in?
definitely yes. Just like with Hannah and Kari specifically, just because they are on a different team than me. So I've kind of been like there with them, but kind of not. So
It's interesting because Kari often is the one who will go to the front at the beginning.
yeah,
And for those who are listening, being in the draft has an immense benefit where you're working 25% less or whatever when you're sitting in the draft, and that can really help to save your sprint for the end. Are you working on any tactics? Have you been working on any tactics to sort of say, okay, this is what they do well, this is what I do well, how can I dictate to them as opposed to react to what they're doing?
yeah, and I mean, I think one of the things is knowing my endurance levels, and how much I can hold back, and then use that to power through at the end when I need it, because that's also something you see with Hannah's performance is that she will like turn on the switch and she can go like as fast as she can. But I have to know that if I want to hold back at the right amount of time, that it's just, I have to do it at a strategic moment, or it might not go as well as I planned. So yeah.
But I'd imagine this is what you've been working on, the last few years while you've been at Illinois. You have the benefit of working with Adam Blakeney, who is a supreme strategist, right? To be able to go, okay, Alexa, let's do this, let's do that. So you go in with a game plan. Having that game plan, does that make you more confident? Does it make you feel more armed as you're approaching this competition?
Yeah, it definitely does. Just knowing that in the back of my mind, like I have that idea of what I can do, or if need be, I can go to that and use that whenever I'm racing. Yeah, it definitely does.
And what about, we've been talking a lot about the 800. What about the 100? How does that work out for you?
Yeah, the 100, I just I just think get off the line and go as fast as you can and finish. That's pretty much my whole plan for the 100. Move my arms as fast as I can, um, and just try to finish. That's my main thing for the 100. It is not my favorite race. I wish they had the 400 still. But
Right, exactly. And that's something that they had in Rio.
yeah,
That you ran the 100, the 400, and the 800, and now in your class they've eliminated the 400, so it's just the 100 and the 800.
yeah.
And is there any other talent? It seems like it's been the three of you, Kari and Hannah and you, competing really since 15, since 2015, right? And
Yeah.
Kari's a year younger than you are.
Yeah.
Hannah's 8 years older than you. But the three of you have been battling it out. Do you feel like there anybody else?
Yeah, so we have some new talent. We have Eva. She's on the team now,
Mhm.
or she made the team this for Tokyo, and she is training at Illinois with me. So that's another 34 coming in the US. Who else? I think there's some people from Japan, and then also like the Netherlands. Um, but I don't know. We'll just have to see who's coming up next.
Can you describe what your class is, T34, and what that means?
Yeah, so T34 class is like cerebral palsy, people with cerebral palsy, and mostly affects your lower body. I don't think anybody in the 34 has hand involvement because that's 33 class. But yeah, so it just affects the lower extremities. And so we just push in a chair. And,
That's
and
how
yeah.
you do it. But how does your everyday work? Like, do you use a wheelchair most days, or do you walk, or do you use a chair to get places, but then stand when you get there? Or how does that work for you?
Yeah, so I actually walk well, I don't walk normally, but I walk in my everyday life. And then if I'm going on like bigger trips or like to malls or something, I use a day chair. But that's not like always. I usually just walk a lot.
You usually just walk. And that's one of the things that, like, as somebody with cerebral palsy, the intention is to walk, right? As
Yeah.
opposed to being in a wheelchair. So in your everyday life, you're in a wheelchair. But what did the racing wheelchair represent for you when you first got to the racing wheelchair?
Well, yeah, it definitely represented me being able to go fast when normally, like, I'm not gonna run, obviously. I mean, there are people with cerebral palsy who run, and that's awesome. But I just personally was not into that. And like when I first started, when I was like 7 or 8, I like the mentor who told me to try wheelchair racing was like, hey, you might want to try wheelchair racing just because as a person with cerebral palsy, your back might not do as well as you might want to. You might trip more, you might get more injuries from running. And so we were like, well, darn, well, we could try wheelchair racing and just see how I feel about that. And then if I don't like it, whatever.
No harm done.
But once I got in the chair, I loved it. And I was like, wow, I could go so fast. I can, well, I mean, at the time, I was like faster than what I was doing. But yeah, so I really enjoyed it. It just represents me going fast.
And that wasn't a difficult move, sort of emotionally, to say, I'm going to use a wheelchair now, as opposed to walking or running or.
I mean, for me, it wasn't, because at the time I was like 8. I don't know what I was doing. For my parents, I would say it was an interesting thing for them. But once they saw like how much like it was doing for me and how much fun I was having, they warmed up to it pretty quickly. They were like, okay, cool.
What has being an athlete done for you? Like,
Oh, I mean, I was telling somebody the other day, I was like, I don't know if I could ever describe myself not as an athlete, because I've done it for so long. And even as an adaptive athlete, I don't think of it any differently than if I was an able-bodied athlete.
you're just an athlete.
Yeah, exactly. And I train the same amount or harder than other athletes I know. So yeah, but I think it's shown me what hard work is, because I don't think I would. I mean, yeah, I just don't know a time when I wasn't an athlete. So I mean, it's definitely showed me what hard work is, how to motivate myself internally, because track is an individual sport. No matter if you do have a team, you're basically motivating yourself to get in that chair, because you're alone on the start line, and you don't have a team like a basketball team with you. So definitely motivating myself, digging deep and realizing like you're the only one who's gonna keep going. You gotta push yourself.
And mentally, psychologically, a track is a difficult place to be too, right? Because there aren't any downhills. There's no place to stop. You keep going, you turn left, you go 100 meters on the turn, you go 100 meters straight, 100 meters on the turn, 100 meters straight. Like, it's just the monotony of it, right? That you just keep going. And it can be really hard. What about the confidence side of being an athlete? What did it do for you as an athlete? Did it affect who you were as a student? Did it affect like the choices that you wanted to make socially as well?
Yeah, so it definitely boosted my confidence in terms of like what I thought I could accomplish as a person and just an athlete in general, because I have very low self-esteem, not due to my disability, just in general. And so like being able to show myself through sport, and like done all these accomplishments through sport has kind of like helped me as a person, because I am seeing my worth through my experiences and what I've been able to do through that. So it kind of just feeds into that a little, but yeah.
And even as a kid, like you're in elementary school, you're in middle school, did you become kind of cool as a result of what you're doing sport wise? Not that you're not cool in general.
I mean, I don't know about cool. I like my social like side and my sports side is very separated. So I don't even know if that was like, I don't know. But like when I was in middle school, I did like an interview with this news station for track, and they were like, oh, and this was in middle school, a long time before Rio, but they were like, we'll see you in Rio. And like that was pretty cool to hear, because I was like, well, that's the goal, but you know.
That's the goal, but I'm not sure if we're actually going to get there.
Yeah.
But then friends saw that. The
Yeah.
parents of friends saw that. What was their reaction? Like, this is big time, like Rio, like that's for real.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely thought it was cool. I don't know if you know this, but my dad is one of my biggest supporters. And if you've ever been to any competition where he's at, he is the loudest person ever. And he makes sure everyone knows that he's cheering for me. So he definitely is always boasting about me and bringing me up to everyone he knows. So I've also like had that going since I was really young.
And are you okay with that, or are you like, dad, like tone it down a little bit?
No, I never tell him to tone it down. I mean, he's just really proud of me, and I mean, he's my dad, so I wouldn't want to do that. It definitely doesn't bother me. It's just kind of funny, the amount he does.
Which is awesome. I mean, it's just awesome when he can express his love for his daughter in such
Yeah.
a vocal way as you're competing. Now, we see a little bit in your hair right now with like the magenta going on. We've seen some magenta chairs. We've seen some pink chairs. What's the connection? Are you making a statement with your color, or is it good luck? What is it?
Well, I did dye my hair just because I wanted to match kind of my chair. But I started getting like pink chairs. I want to say like the third chair I got was a pink chair, and then I was like, you know, I'm just gonna keep going with this trend and just keep getting pink chairs, because I've gone through about 6 chairs since I started racing, and so all of them that I've been able to get on my own, I've gotten pink chairs. So it kind of just has been like a trend. I'm like, I'm just gonna do it, you know. Maybe it's like, maybe it's just I like the color.
And was it just that you were a little girl? I mean, like so many little girls, I remember my niece saying, pink and purple, like that's the way it goes. Like those are my favorite colors. Was that the case for you too?
I mean, yeah, at the time, but now it's not my favorite color. I just, I'm not gonna change it now. So
It's part of who you
I
are.
like it still. So yeah.
This is kind of a signature, and honestly, as a commentator, it's easy to pick you out
Yeah.
on the track. The pink chair definitely sticks out on the track. But
Yeah, that's nice.
it's helpful for me, so I appreciate that. But you do have a good luck sock, is that right? Is there some
Yeah.
truth in this?
Uh, yeah, so my sister got that for me when I was really young. But yeah, I wore it to like one of my competitions a long time ago, and I wear like mismatched socks all the time. So like one of them was the lucky sock, and then the other one was just a random sock. But yeah, I had that one. It was like a Santa sock.
It was sorry.
I don't know if I kept wearing it. Sorry, what?
You don't know if you kept wearing the socks. You
Yeah.
wore it that one
No,
time.
yeah, I don't know. Yeah, but somebody saw that I was wearing that sock and, and said something about it in like a news article, and so that's always brought up.
So it's follow you around, but you don't actually wear the sock anymore.
No, no, not anymore. I don't even know where that sock is. But yeah, back in the day.
Back in the day, wow. So I'd see. I was thinking that you had this like lucky sock that had traveled with you from the time you were 7 years old. This
No, that would be a
doesn't.
great story though.
It makes for a great story. Do you even remember what the sock was like?
Oh no, I have no idea.
No idea. All right. So what are you doing in school? Because part of when you went to Illinois was to get a chance to race at Illinois, but also to get an education.
Mhm.
And so what have you decided to do in terms of your education, and why have you gone in that direction?
Yeah, so my major is communications, and I didn't know what I really wanted to do, and I still don't. But I just wanted to go into communications and see, you know, whatever I could do with that. And so, yeah, that's pretty much um,
So pretty much it.
that.
So that you wanted to go into communications, but I mean, it sounds like you wanted to say something when you went to communications. I mean, is part of it telling this story that you've seen through sport? Is it part of like why go into communications, or do you just want to do something entirely different and leave sport behind?
Well, that's what I'm kind of dealing with now, like thinking about that. I'm not sure. I mean, college is like that side of my life where it's like different from sports. So like I also want to explore that. Um, but I think when I was going into it, I think I was just thinking of something that I could have a job in, not really thinking directly like what direction I want to take with it. So yeah, that was mainly it. But I wouldn't mind like doing something that also um, is like related with sport because I've been in it for so long. I mean, I know the sport. I feel like enough, so I kind of don't want to leave it behind too much. But yeah.
Have you imagined any of what you might do? I mean, this is always the hard part, right? You're going into your senior year right now, where you
Yeah.
feel like you probably know what you're talking about. You probably should have an idea of what you're doing, but I
Yeah.
understand full well. I mean, I'm well out of college and still trying to figure out what I'm doing. So have you had any kind of dream job kind of thing, or like things that you might want to try out, or
Not really. I mean, when I was really young, I wanted to be a writer. And then I was like, no, that's too like I don't think I can do that. And then I mean, no jobs are really at the top of my mind. Like honestly, sport wise, I've just been focused on sport, doing the continuous cycle of training. So I just even though it should be a priority, I'm not thinking as a career as a priority right now.
which makes sense because you're 21 years old, and
Yeah.
if you want to continue to compete, you could compete for a while. And this actually, it's not a quadrennium. I mean, they're just 3 years in between Tokyo and Paris now, which makes it seem a lot easier. And then 2028, they're
Yeah.
in LA. What are you thinking about how long you might want to stick around? I mean, you could well be a marathoner by the time you get to LA.
Oh God. Well, I think as a Paralympic athlete, you kind of think in cycles, just because of the games. So I mean, I hope to make it to Paris, um, and not thinking like oh, will I make it? It's just like mentally wise. How long can I, um, stay motivated and keep wanting to do the sport as much as I have been. So my goal is Paris at least, and just see what happens after that. But yeah.
What is the motivation? What's the thing that keeps you going? Because it's a lot of long miles. It's a lot of early mornings. You live in Illinois, so it's a lot of cold mornings. It's a lot of windy workouts, right? You get some rain. What keeps you going?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately the competition does. That idea of being the best in the world, um, or wanting to be the best in the world, um, is what keeps me going, because ultimately, like, yeah, there's a lot of downtime. Well, downtime meaning practice time, not competition time. Um, and you just got to think to yourself, like, you're not going to make it to the top if you don't do all this prep, if you don't do all this do all this training in between. So yeah.
So you were saying that during COVID things were really difficult because this was March of last year that it shut down, and then I don't remember when they postponed the games. Was that like June-ish that they postponed the
Yeah.
games?
Yeah, they told us about it in June, I want to say, like early June. And so then we were like, okay, well, there's no competitions definitely for 2020. Um,
And that was
and
no competition at all, right?
yeah, none. I didn't compete at all 2020. And that was just really hard because also I got sent back from school because, Illinois was like, okay, everybody go home. And so I went back home to Virginia and I was back to training on my own. I mean, I able-bodied teammates from my elite team back home, but
So you were
there
actually
wasn't
able to
like the
train with
Illinois
other
group.
people. You were able to train
Yeah,
with other
yeah.
people. Okay, interesting.
Um, yeah, I think at the end of 2020, I think at the beginning it was kind of just, everybody isolating and me just doing like road workouts on my own or rollers. Um, but yeah, and so, but the main thing was not competing just because I'm like a goal-oriented person. Um, like mostly in like track stuff. Um, so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go to this competition in May, and I have my others lined up. I'm training during this time and all this. Like that's how I think about it. And when there's no competitions to look forward to, it's like it feels like you're at a standstill, which I mean, it's all mental. Like it's 90% mental, especially for me, I feel like. And so yeah, it was just rough to keep going at that time.
Do you typically push faster at competition than you do in training? Are you kind of like a competition person, or do you stay within that same kind of range? Are you able to hit those numbers in training?
I think sometimes I am able to, but I think once I get to competition, it's like a second gear. Like it's a gear switch, and then I'm like the adrenaline kicks in, and then I'm like, oh, okay, and then I kind of go. But I try to maintain as much speed as I can in training for sure.
Right. So how did you get through that then? How did you get through that period of time when you didn't know, when you didn't have any competitions, when you didn't know when you were going to have a competition,
Yeah.
and you couldn't just let go and lose all of your fitness?
Yeah, I mean, it was mostly like motivation from my family because I was back home. and just like teammates cheer me on. Just, you know, yeah, you have to do a lot of self-reflection at that time too, because you're just thinking like what's really important at that time. Like, do you want to maintain your training, and do you still want to do this in the end, or maybe you want to take a break, um, you know and but training was most important to me because like getting on the track is like something that ultimately helps me. I have to tell myself that sometimes whenever training gets rough and I'm like, ugh, why am I doing this? But like it ultimately helps me. Like my mom always reminds me, she's like, if I'm in a bad mood, she's like, go practice and you'll feel better afterwards. And it's right every time. Like she's not kidding, because I'm like, oh, I don't want to practice. But then when I practice, I feel great. So like, it's just like getting out there and forcing myself to do it, but knowing that, I mean, the results are worth it, because, you have the main goal in mind. So.
Right. And you get some other benefits from it too. I mean, you get the sort of endorphin part of it, and you feel better about yourself. You're like, I did what I was supposed to do, so I feel good about myself. I'm going in the right direction, as opposed to just I'm getting more and more lazy each and every day, which can be more of a challenge. What was it like coming out of it? Because the thing is, you were at home, you were training with these runners who are great runners, but it's a different dynamic. You were back to training effectively on your own. You're not drafting off of any of the runners. You're probably not comparing much in the way of times or speed or any of that. It's so different. They get up to speed so much more quickly than you do. What was it like when you finally sort of emerged and knew also that Tokyo was indeed happening?
Yeah. I mean, I was super relieved, in all honesty, because I mean, it was kind of like seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. Like you are positive, you see some positivity going on, and you're like, yes, I can get back into like fully training and like seeing the bright side, because it was not looking bright. And so once we all realized that Tokyo was happening, and still this whole time, we're just excited. And like being able to go to trials in desert too, was nice to see all the adaptive athletes, because it'd been such a like long break of time. So just seeing all my friends and like everybody, like it was just really awesome to get back into it, because yeah, that break was long.
That break was long. What was the first meet that you did? Was it the Desert Challenge out in Phoenix?
Yeah, it was desert. It was in June, early June, I think.
Early June.
Yeah,
What was that like? I mean, you guys are all, because you're still masked up then.
yeah, it was definitely a different experience. Everybody was more isolated. Like normally at a competition, everyone would be like close to each other. Like there were like two people in the crowd at desert, which normally it's like filled up and like everybody's walking around running. And so yeah, it was definitely interesting to see that, with the audience, and like yeah. But and there were a lot less people than there normally is in attendance, so that was
Competitors.
interesting to see. But yeah, competitors as well. um but I mean,
But that's also preparing you in some ways for Tokyo, because it was the same thing at trials in Minneapolis, where there was nobody in the
yeah,
stands. The only people in the stands were people who were there competing. or coaches or whatever. There were no family members, there were no outside people. That's going to be the same in Tokyo. How does that work for you? Because it sounds like adrenaline is a big part of who you are. Is it just the adrenaline of being on the line with your fellow competitors, or is it like, oh wow, look at all these people, like did you hear that roar when we came into the
Yeah.
stadium?
I mean, mostly it's just being on the line with my competitors. I I tell my family this, like whenever I'm on the line at a big competition, I go like full tunnel vision. So I have no idea who's around me. And I just zone in and race. Um, like, yeah, if a stadium is packed like London, or when there was a lot of people at some of the other competitions, like, yeah, it kind of phases me, but it's just like I'm thinking about the track, and yeah, that's where all the nerves get going.
Is that something that you have developed over time, or is it just something that happened for you naturally, that you get to a big event and it's like, okay, this is it. This is all I can understand. This is the reason I'm here.
I think it probably developed over time, but I remember it specifically being in Rio when it kind of first started, and I think it might have been just like my internal, like that's how my body reacted to being on that stage. It kind of just zoned everything out. It was like, you're not thinking about all this other stuff going on, you're just thinking about the track. And I think it kind of just developed from Rio. And then it kind of just has been going on since then.
What was your first event in Rio? Was it the 100 or?
Yeah. Yeah, it was the 100. And I was most nervous about the 100 because, like, standing wise, I'm kind of like more far back in the 100, ranking wise, I guess. So I was super nervous about the 100 and just being the first race. So I was like, okay, here we go.
The rankings, you weren't ranked in the top 3 for the 100?
I think I think I was fourth in the 100 in Rio. So I was like, on edge a little, just worried, but
But it ended up working out, and that tunnel vision sounds like the thing that actually sort of helped you to go, okay, yes, there are a lot of people, yes, there are television cameras, yes, these are the best people in the world, but this is my lane and it's all I can do is just to do what I do. It is, I mean, that sounds like something that actually sort of makes you stronger moving forward, that helps your focus and go, all right, I know what I'm supposed to do. I just take care of my business. Is that the way you look at it now?
yeah, because I mean, there's nothing that I can like change about anybody else's stuff or any other environmental things going on. I mean, in practice, I kind of think the same way when we're doing like standing starts or like, I don't know, sets of anything. Like, I'm just doing whatever I got to do to go as fast as I can. And I mean, that's the mentality I try to keep for every time I'm on the track. But yeah.
So you're not looking at it saying, okay, I'm on the track with Tatiana. Am I getting closer to Tatiana in these starts, or whoever it is? You're not using another teammate to help you gauge your improvement.
I mean, not necessarily, but it is nice to like kind of bounce off of them and like obviously train with them, but it's not as much like comparison, I don't think.
Right. Okay. It's not that, because I mean, that for me was always one of the things that I tried to do. Like, okay, there's somebody who's faster than I am. My goal is just to keep up with them, because I mean, I always felt like, you kind of, especially in sort of longer things where you're going longer distances and it's so easy to think about how much it hurts.
Yeah.
Okay, I should probably slow down a little bit, but if there's somebody in front of you who's going faster,
Well,
then
yeah.
you keep thinking, okay, well, stay close, like don't lose this person, and then you're not thinking as much about how much something hurts or whatever. So that was always kind of my mentality. But
Yeah, it's much easier to chase somebody than do it all on your own, that's for sure.
it really is. So going to Tokyo, is there anything that you're like, what are you looking forward to going to the games? This is your second games. You kind of know a little bit more what to expect.
Oh yeah, hopefully. Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking about um, getting a faster time than I did at trials. Um, I mean, that's my main focus, and medaling,
You no
obviously.
longer have the world record, right? But you did
No,
have it at one point.
yeah, I did in 2017, I want to say. But yeah, I mean, it would be awesome to get a world record too, but my main goal is medaling um, in the 800 and the 100, hopefully, but the 800 is my main goal there. So
Right. And it's really hard to run a world record in the 800 at a Paralympics because if you get on the front and are going world record pace, other people potentially can be right behind you, sitting in your draft, benefiting from the work that you're doing. And
yeah,
then, in the last 100 meters, say, thank you, Alexa. That was a really nice ride that you gave me there. And I appreciate it. And I'm going to pass you now. So,
yeah, no, for sure. And that happened to me in Dubai. I mean, that 800, that specifically happened to me. And I'm thinking back to that because I don't want that to happen again in Tokyo. So, yeah.
well, this is the experience, right? You started as such a young kid and you're getting this experience. And it is in your class, it's really challenging in that it's two, three, four of you who are all together, and so there's no chance of really shaking up that pack as much as if there are 10 of you in the same pack. It's not going to play out the same way always,
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
which is a challenge. So looking forward to getting back there. Are you looking forward to seeing your competition? To looks like a fast track from watching the Olympics.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, it's always nice to see my competitors. Like, I mean, ultimately, it's fun for me. Like, I enjoy competing much more than I do training. But I do like competing, and so it's nice to be in that place where I do see my competitors because it's only once in a while. So yeah, it's nice to be with everyone again.
Right. And you've done all of this work. Now you get your payoff and do you look at it as just fun? Do you feel the pressure of having to perform, or is it kind of like, I get to go perform? How do you look at it?
Um, I definitely put so much pressure on myself. Like, there's no pressure. Like, I don't feel any outside pressure from anybody, from my teammates or my family, none of that. It's mostly me putting pressure on myself. Um, but I mean, I think of it more as like kind of a job. Like, I got to do this. But that kind of helps me. It helps me, like, motivates me to like keep going harder, I think, because even though it can be fun, I know that at a competition, like, this is what I do. This is like, I'm training to be the best that I can, so it better pay off. Like, I'm thinking in my head, hopefully.
So you show up and you go, this is my job. I do what I'm supposed to do. Like, don't let the nerves get in the way or the moment get in the way. Just like do what you've done. You've practiced this, you've perfected your craft, at least as much as you possibly can, right? So show up and do what you're supposed to do. Like, don't get all crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Well, this sounds like fun. Well, I am looking forward to watching you in Tokyo and to seeing how this plays out. It's it's going to be interesting because there are two of them. That sounds like there might be two of you as well, if Eva can get into that. Yeah, that
Yeah.
mix. So Alexa, thank you so much for taking the time, for joining us, for telling your story, for putting in the work that goes into some amazing performances.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is fun. It's a conversation we'll continue. So thanks a lot. Good luck with your travel.
Yeah.
Thank you to all of you for tuning in. Really appreciate it. You can watch this. It will be archived on the One Revolution page on Facebook. We will also turn it into a podcast. That podcast will be on Spotify. It'll be on Apple Podcasts. It'll be on YouTube if you want to watch it as well. And please, if you like what we're doing, tell your friends, follow us, like us. We will continue to get great guests, and we will look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks a ton. Have a great day.